The year is 1558, and the bells of London toll not for joy, but fear. Mary Tudor is dead, and her half-sister Elizabeth, daughter of the disgraced Anne Boleyn, ascends the throne. She is 25, brilliant, cautious, and alone. Behind her coronation smiles lies a wound the court dares not name. Love forbidden, power tainted by her mother's execution. In the shadowed halls of Whitehall Palace, courtiers whisper, will this queen rule with her head or her heart? Among them stands Robert Dudley, son of a traitor, tall, magnetic, with eyes that never leave the queen's. They share a past, childhood friends, bound by ambition and survival, but the air between them crackles with something dangerous. In the court's candlelit chambers, every glance is currency, every silence a scandal. Letters between them, preserved in the Hatfield archives, breathe a tenderness the crown could never allow. I am yours, as ever in my heart, one reads. Yet in the corridors outside, Sir William Cecil, her chief advisor, watches. He knows passion is peril for a queen whose legitimacy is fragile. A rumor, a pregnancy, a secret marriage could ignite rebellion. The crown must remain pure, even if the heart rots beneath its weight. For the people of England, Elizabeth is the virgin queen, God's chosen, untouched by man. But within the court, whispers swirl like smoke. Servants speak of late-night visits, doors unbarred, footsteps echoing through the royal gallery. A maid named Anne Vavasor, just 16, writes in her secret journal, fragments later found in family papers. Her Majesty's eyes lingered long upon my lord, yet her face was iron. The line between restraint and ruin was a razor's edge. For modern viewers, it's like watching a leader perform perfection for cameras while rumors spiral online, every glance dissected, every friendship weaponized. The Elizabethan court was the Tudor Twitter, where gossip could crown or kill. Elizabeth locks herself away for days. To the council, she declares innocence. To her mirror, she whispers, "Was this my doing?" Outside, the kingdom divides. To marry Dudley would be to invite ruin. To reject him would be to break her own heart. Survival demands sacrifice, and Elizabeth chooses her throne. Dudley remains by her side, not as husband, but as wound. In a quiet chamber, a servant named Tamsin Lee, whose family records still survive in parish rolls, writes, "The Queen walks with pride, but her eyes are hollow. The Lord Robert's shadow follows her still." Love denied becomes legend. Meanwhile, beneath the court's marble floors, another world thrives. Actors, courtesans, poets, and spies. The globe is yet unborn, but London's stages already pulse with forbidden heat. Plays mock the pious, jest about cuckolded nobles, and hint at the Queen's own desires. Christopher Marlowe, the dramatist spy, writes of kings who lust and fall. He dies in a tavern brawl, stabbed through the eye, perhaps silenced for what he knew. In the Queen's private chambers, her ladies-in-waiting are not innocent either. Mary Shelton, once her cousin's lover, now attends Elizabeth by day and writes secret verses by night. In one poem, hidden among courtly love songs, she dares to write, "We burn in silence, crowned by lies." The Virgin Queen's image hides a court drunk on intrigue, its chastity a theater mask. For USA viewers, imagine Washington's White House turned Elizabethan, scandal controlled by spectacle, love buried under diplomacy. Every gesture rehearsed, every emotion weaponized. And yet, beneath the pageantry, Elizabeth is human. She fears betrayal, not only from men, but from time. Every wrinkle threatens her myth. She paints her face white with lead, her lips crimson, her hair a halo of flame. The image endures, but the woman fades. Her ladies whisper she sleeps little, eats less, prays long into the night. Her loneliness becomes a kind of devotion. By 1570, rebellion brews. The papal bull declares her excommunicated, a heretic queen. Spain plots her downfall. Mary, Queen of Scots, her cousin and rival, waits in captivity, a mirror of the fate Elizabeth escaped. And in the shadows, Robert Dudley still waits, too. His loyalty unbroken, his love buried alive. In 1588, as the Spanish Armada looms, Elizabeth rides to Tilbury in armor, declaring to her troops, "I have the heart and stomach of a king, and of a king of England, too." The crowd roars, the myth reborn. But when night falls, she sits alone. Dudley dies that same year, his final letter found in her bedside chest, marked his last. She keeps it until her death. The Virgin Queen's legend is sealed, not in purity, but in pain. By the 1580s, Queen Elizabeth I had ruled England for more than 2 decades, untouched, unwed, unbroken. But inside the marble silence of her palaces, the Virgin Queen's control was cracking. The Queen who once danced all night at court balls now moved slower, her beauty fading beneath layers of white paint. And yet her eyes, sharp, amber, and watchful, missed nothing. Elizabeth had turned her court into a stage, and everyone in it was performing. But behind every smile, someone was lying. And behind every lie, someone was listening. Enter Sir Francis Walsingham, the spy master. A man of steel and scripture, he believed sin was the language of power. His agents infiltrated taverns, monasteries, and even bedrooms, collecting whispers like coins. Adultery, blasphemy, forbidden letters, everything became evidence, everything became leverage. The Virgin Queen's purity was no longer just an image, it was a weapon. While her enemies sinned in secret, she stood spotless. Or so they thought. Because even as she condemned others, Elizabeth still hungered for affection and danger. That's when Robert Devereux, the Earl of Essex, arrived. He was young, fiery, reckless, the stepson of her old love, Robert Dudley. He was everything she no longer was, daring, beautiful, unafraid to burn. At first she called him her boy, her sunshine, but soon their flirtations filled the court like perfume. He would enter her chambers unannounced, kiss her hand too long, argue with her in council, and still she'd forgive him. To outsiders, it looked like madness. To Elizabeth, it felt like youth reborn. One courtier, Lady Scrope, once wrote in a secret letter, now held in the Hatfield archives, "Her Majesty smiles upon my Lord Essex as though she were bewitched." But Essex didn't just want her love, he wanted her power. He mocked her advisors, pushed her generals aside, and plotted his own glory. The Queen saw it, yet couldn't stop herself. Every punishment came with pardon, every betrayal with tears. The Virgin Queen, who mastered kings and armies, was losing her heart again.
When Essex failed his Irish campaign and returned home in disgrace, he did the unthinkable. He burst into her private chambers while she stood half-dressed, without wig, without paint, without the mask. The Queen of England exposed as a frail old woman before the man who once called her divine. Her scream echoed through Whitehall like thunder. That moment broke something in her. The next time Essex saw her face, it was in court, as a condemned traitor. He begged for mercy, but she turned away. On February 25, 1601, he was executed at the Tower of London. When they told her he was dead, she said only, "He sought my heart and lost his own." That night she didn't sleep. Her ladies found her the next morning sitting in silence, his ring still in her hand. But the Queen's world didn't end with heartbreak, it dissolved into paranoia. Walsingham was gone, his spy web now turned inward. Elizabeth feared not invasion, but intimacy. Even her most loyal courtiers, like Walter Raleigh, found themselves in the Tower for marrying without her consent. Love itself had become treason, and maybe, in her eyes, it always was. Outside the palace, the Elizabethan underworld pulsed with a different rhythm. Theaters, taverns, and brothels filled Southwark's muddy streets. While the Queen banned open sin, her people acted it out in shadows. Prostitutes dressed as noblewomen, priests heard confessions in secret beds. Even the playwrights, Shakespeare, Marlowe, Kidd, encoded forbidden lust in their verses. In Romeo and Juliet, the fever of secret love. In Measure for Measure, a ruler obsessed with purity. And in Twelfth Night, women disguised as men, desire bending all order. It was art as rebellion. Elizabeth loved the theater. She watched the players perform her contradictions for her, passion and power, purity and deceit, all while the world worshipped her myth. And yet when she laughed, her courtiers whispered, "She sees herself in them." The Virgin Queen was both actress and audience in the greatest performance of all, her own reign. In her final years, the mask grew heavy. She lost her closest friends, her lovers, her beauty, her certainty, but she never lost her control. When courtiers begged her to name a successor, she refused. Even death would not rush her. "I will not be made a story before my time," she said. But history always has a way of writing itself. In 1603, after 45 years on the throne, Elizabeth I died in her sleep, alone, surrounded by her ladies. They found her sitting upright, her fingers stained with rouge, her eyes open. And on her table lay one final note, unsigned, written in her own hand. "They will call me the Virgin Queen. Let them, for they will never know the truth." And that's the tragedy of Elizabeth. A woman who conquered empires, mastered politics, and tamed men's hearts, but spent her life caged by her own image. She turned chastity into armor, loneliness into legend, and for centuries the world believed her performance. But behind the crown, behind the lead paint, behind the myth, was just a woman aching to be loved and terrified of being known.